Peace, family. So we back with another one. Today what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk to my chosen ones about knowing how the opposition, the enemy, will communicate with you with a little piece of fear attached to their verbal wordage. You know what I mean? So the process with this one here is, right? Because we can also experience these things ourselves, because we all know that the opposition on the bigger scale of things is a spiritual entity, you know, or principle morals that's opposite of the natural flow of things, you know what I mean? So what kind of dove me into this subject today, I was just kind of processing and was trying to communicate outward with some other beings, and just a few of them kind of had the same language, and you know, as they communicated and spoke outwardly, it just reminded me of how much fear the opposition attaches to all of their recipes. Every recipe the enemy has will have some kind of fear or residue of fear attached to it. So when you hear people saying like, oh, I can't do it, or oh, it's not gonna work, that's fear attached to it. Everything comes with an ingredients, you know what I mean? So when you communicate outward, you're using your words, you know what I'm saying? You got your energy, you're projecting it a certain way. It's a numerous of things you can kind of put into that recipe, you know what I mean? But with the opposition and saying things that they cannot do, or it's not going to happen, or it won't work, we all understand the optimistic ways. I was trying to say optimism and tongue-tied. It's all good. And like when you communicating using these kind of tactics, right? Just normal usage. And when we are sent information and we communicate it outwardly, instead of saying something like we can't do it or it won't happen, we are gonna reframe it to something more like, the odds is a little bit difficult, or that one may be a little tricky, or it might be a little bit harder. You hear even the few words that I processed outwardly, there is a lot more courage attached to that verbal usage opposed from the other verbal usage of I can't do it, or it's not going to work. It's a difference between saying it's not going to work and knowing that it's facts. Like me trying to kick this tree down right now. Like that's not gonna work. You know what I mean? Like that is a little bit different than opposed from you trying to make a team, or you trying to get a part of a job, or you trying to build your own tribe, you know what I mean? You are going to have more courage attached to it. Because what happens is it's a lot of fear mongering out here, and then you do have a lot of oppositions who communicate in a weird space to where some of them understand that it's extremely low vibration, and then some of them feel as if it's just okay to project it outwardly, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like spitting poison out, and then certain beings are always like, yeah, it's okay to spit that poison out, you know what I'm saying? You can spit that poison out. It's not okay, because what if it ends up in your meal? What if you have a pet that ends up tasting the poison? You know what I'm saying? That's more people and beings and entities that's affected by that poison, you know what I mean? So just understanding that fear isn't always something outside of you, you know, and when people communicate these things, energy is effective, you know? So I know some people say it's rude to shut things down, but sometimes you gotta shut shit down, you know what I mean? So for me, if I see somebody spilling toxins into the ocean, I'm not just gonna let them do it because the toxins aren't getting on me. I'm gonna try to go over there and stop them from pouring the toxins into the ocean, you know what I mean? It should be no different with your spiritual process, you know what I mean? Don't find yourself or allow people and other entities that you engage with to communicate with you with so much fear attached to it, you cannot tell them what to say and how to say it and have them actually listen, because you can tell them, but they don't have to actually listen. But you can figure out how to put barriers up spiritually so that way you're not affected as much when another entity is in that space. You know, whether you're trying to build them out of that space or whether y'all was just engaging, communicating, and this is how they're just choosing to give the energy. You know what I mean? Because that's the beauty that we understand about this thing called life, is we have free will and free choice. And that shows where your power lies at. You know what I mean? If you using your free will and your free choice and you are communicating outwardly with beings with a piece of fear attached to everything that you're saying, using this playbook over here. And if somebody's using the opposite playbook, they're allowed to tell you you're wrong. They're allowed to tell you to shut the fuck up. Like, clearly we are all fighting something out here. You know what I mean? So for me, it only makes sense for when I was younger, I was fighting all the physical vessels. Boyhood, manhood, testosterone, masculinity, all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? But then understanding that, all right, you standing solid and firm on a belief system, which was great, but I didn't really understand the direction. You know what I mean? So like, I understood it, but it wasn't verbally communicated outwardly with me. I was raised in a church, so like, that still didn't even make the correlation. That just went to show me that I don't need to be in churches to be connected with the source. You know what I'm saying? Your body is a temple. So if you believe in church, then you at church every day. You know what I'm saying? That's all day, every day. Like, even with me not believing in, you know, the book per se, even though I do enjoy it and I will use some references to it, you know what I'm saying, pieces, you know, you got to take percentages out of everything. And then like a lot of those things that's in the Bible is more so of like allegories. There's more so of like more so of an energy frequency that they're discussing, because we know that a lot of them entities didn't have the names that they were given. They just changed the names for each generation for us to be able to comprehend better the stories. You know what I'm saying? So if you understand that, then you understand somebody today can write a whole story, and then we can all validate it and then pass that same thing on as what they did with that book. You know what I'm saying? So it all goes hand in hand, you know, but just understanding the communication and the language out here is heavy, and understanding that people choose, these entities choose to put out these weird vibrations with all this fear attached to it. You know what I'm saying? Look at it kind of like, I would say, if you've seen the movie Half Baked, kind of like the weed man from Half Baked. He always had his signature and everything, and if you into the medical world now, I just call them flowers, but they got all these technical names. It's like, if you go to a dispensary and it has a certain name, all of its items is gonna have its trademark on it. It's not all the same for merch. That's why I use that product per se, because you can get all kind of pens, edibles, you can get a mixture of variety, but they always have their signature energy on there. You know what I mean? And you can use Nike, but Nike doesn't always put their signature on everything. You know what I mean? So, but it's the same thing. It's the same concept. They just use the physical representation opposed from the spiritual representation. Meaning that they just formulated into this realm, because everything formulates from inward outwardly. But the opposition sends their shit attached with fear. If they're going to send you some food, they're going to send that shit attached with fear. If they're going to send you some money, they're going to send it attached with fear. You know what I'm saying? If you need a man, they might send you him attached with fear. If you need a female, if they got fear attached to it, you know where it's coming from. Courage comes from this side. Bravery comes from this side. You know what I'm saying? So I just always been in the space of trying to do my part and put as much out there to help people as much as they possibly can be helped, because some people don't want to be in that space that they're in. You know, I know a lot of them choose to be in that space in the yard, but there is beings out there that don't want to be in that space. It's a lot of beings like us that's just trying to figure out how to wiggle around in this mess. You know what I'm saying? Because you can watch content all day, but then if you living in the house, then you still have to battle with it full on. If you at the job site, you know what I'm saying, you still have to battle it full on until you shift. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you can hear about all these good methods, you know what I'm saying, but you still have to figure out how to manage your energy best so you can respond appropriately when you're in the situation. You know what I'm saying? I done been in a lot of fights, so if I get into a fight now, I wouldn't be as angry. It would be more organized in the process, you know what I mean? So it wouldn't be just a bunch of swinging all crazy. It's gonna be a lot more timely, you know what I mean? So just keeping these things in mind when people are communicating with you, listen attentively to see if it's fear attached to it. And if it is, see if they're compensating for it after they get done putting that energy out there. Because if it's not a compensation for it, and then you compensated for it, but then they're still putting that shit on top of it, that means they're intentionally doing this and they want to outpower it. Yours. This is all spiritual based. People that say they don't want anything from you, they want your energy. That's something. You know what I mean? But I ain't want to run it up too long, you know what I'm saying? Be mindful of the communication. And the things that come from the opposition is always going to have a piece of fear for it. If it's coming from, you know, Big Swole, you know what I'm saying? It's going to have some courage attached to it. Because the courage outpowers the fear. The courage outpowers the fear. You know what I mean? Tapping everything down below. Peace and love to the kings and queens.